Uh, Hello, good morning, everyone. Uh, my name is Rajesh Deshpande. I just wanted to make sure that you guys can uh, listen to me properly. My voice is audible. So, or anybody is facing a problem of echo or anything, please let me know. Correct.
Hello.
So the
Yeah.
presentation is uploaded. Now you are the presenter.
Can you view the
Thank you.
presentation?
Okay.
Yeah, I
thank you.
can see my presentation. Thanks a lot.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Can
And
take
I
over.
guess my voice is properly clear. No problem in that, right?
Okay, no problem. No issue for the audio, sir. It's good.
Okay. So,
Okay.
good morning, everyone. My name is Rajesh
Very low
Deshpande,
voice.
and I will be presenting in next 1 hour or so some of my experiences on energy management in air conditioning system. Now, just to give a brief background, I did my chemical engineering and uh, did my energy management course. Incidentally, Mr. Hari Kumar was my student in the course. We did our specialization in energy management in Chennai through the National Productivity Council. That was way back in 1992. And since 1996, I am in the profession of energy management. We work on energy auditing and then take up the whole concept which comes out of an audit to implementation through design and engineering. So what am I going to share with you today are these experiences, combined, which means that what we experienced while designing a new system, what we learned out of auditing the system, and finally, how did we go about implementing whatever we experienced from the audit. So I'll straight go to the topic without wasting further time. Now, when we look at the air conditioning system, we must understand what is the purpose of air conditioning system. Now, people would appreciate that we definitely require a thermal comfort, so we are going to control temperature and humidity, and probably the atmospheric conditions which are affecting the human comfort, which are not connected with temperature and humidity, like dust particles coming into the space, they get filtered out. Now, this is a very customary definition of air conditioning, which is by and large applicable for human comfort. Whereas industrial applications, like we design for pharma, we design for electronic industry, we also design for different temperature and humidity controlled applications in the industry. Like we did one system for Siemens electrical insulation of the transformer. Now, these kind of air conditioning systems obviously will have a much different objective of design, which will be centered around these three: humidity, temperature, and particulate matter control. Now, when we come to the next point, human comfort, all human are not same. So, a coffee is not the same when it comes to Chennai and Kerala and Maharashtra and Delhi. Same way, the human comfort is a state of mind, and that is expressed by the satisfaction with the thermal surrounding. That's a definition, which in other words means that somebody may find it comfortable and somebody may not find it comfortable. This is a very tricky situation. How do one handle this tricky situation without really getting bogged down by the findings? So, what are the variables? A human comfort variable, if you see, there are some physiological variables, there are some environmental factors. What do I mean by physiological variables? Clothing, metabolic rate. Just a quick example: if you are wearing suit, tie, and the complete three-piece suit variant, obviously you will not be able to work comfortably in a temperature which is like 26 degrees centigrade. Now, what is the real life application of that? Operation theaters, normal temperature setting is around 18 degrees centigrade because the light which is surrounding is very bright and the gowning of the doctor is completely impermeable. Uh, Now, at 18 degrees centigrade, also doctors complain that they sweat like anything. So that's one activity. Second point is metabolism rate that is measured in METs. One MET is about 58 watts per meter square, which means that if you're doing a gym, obviously your cooling requirement is going to be much higher than you're sleeping at your home. These factors have a large impact, and I'm going to show you in the next slide. And the design has to incorporate adequate consideration for these factors. What are the environmental factors? Surrounding air temperatures, radiant temperature of the surfaces around, human movement, air movement, humidity, odor, dust, so on and so forth. Let's see a very typical case. You are as a human being standing at the center and surrounded by so many parts. One of the things which is the mean radiant temperature. Suppose you have a red hot window, okay, on the side. When you get into a car, when your surrounding is 23 or 24, your windshield is the sun shield is glass shield is completely hot and radiating energy heat inside. You're not comfortable even if you have temperature and air movement inside. So if you can see the strip below, the temperature can vary in different times from 58 to 96. 58 could be a winter and 96 could be a summer condition. 96 is pretty hot, it is 37 degrees centigrade. Now, how does it impact your design? See, my objective is to talk about energy management. I'm not talking about design and engineering aspects. How does it affect design? Now, Willis Carrier was the first one who defined comfort in a scientific manner, which can be depicted by a picture, by a graph, by something which is measurable. Now, you see this, the zone of winter and summer, which is shown in this. Now, this is a comfort zone during the surrounding conditions given in the environment. Now, which means that a person is going to be more comfortable at lower temperature in winter and higher temperature in summer. And you see what we do at home, we set temperature to 18 degrees centigrade on a hot summer day. Now, that's not correct because the human comfort is not going to be at lower temperatures. When 75 means the mean, which is around 23 degrees C, it goes as low as 68, which means that even at 20 degrees C, a person can be comfortable during winter, and at 27 degrees centigrade, a person can be comfortable during summer. Let's see how these factors, what we discussed, have an impact. On a given day, for a given situation, if I have got 20 feet per minute velocity on the human body, which means that the human body is exposed to this air velocity across. The blower is blowing this. What actually happens? The comfort temperature moves from 69 to 73. This is 4 degrees C rise in the comfort temperature for a human being. What I'm referring to is this point. Okay. the zone moves from left to right from something like 69 to 73 on a minimum side, and as wide as 80°F, 28°C at lower humidities, of course. So you will also notice that as you move up on the humidity line, the temperature tends to lower. What does it mean? You are more comfortable at higher temperature at lower humidity. Now this sounds very easy, but achieving lower humidity without exerting energy is not that easy. So we're going to see some of the aspects of it in the next part. So summarize, what are we saying? HVAC control parameters, you have temperature and relative humidity. What affects it? Location of the plant, room construction, fresh air requirement, equipment load within the room, person working, exhausts from the room, product requirements, etc. So on and so forth. Second is minimum airflow, that is class of cleanliness, type and nature of product handled defines it, recovery time expected. Now this, I would like to just bring to your notice, are not comfort determinant. These are for industrial applications where air conditioning is a fundamental need for a product quality perspective and not comfort only. Comfort is a consideration, but not the only consideration. Next part is the contamination part. Differential pressure control is specifically for areas where you have either dust or microbial contaminations, particularly pharma and hospital applications, which control the need for air conditioning. Which means that if you are making a drug, let's say a sex hormone or an oncological drug or a microbial, active microbe containing drug, the drug itself is a pollutant to the other areas, and the area in which the drug is handled has to be at a pressure lower than the surrounding areas. So in case of air leakage, air from other areas will come in and the drugs will not go out. Whereas if you are doing a tableting, if you're doing something where the tablets are getting manufactured, so you would like to have the manufacturing area at a higher pressure, because you would not like the dust from surrounding to come inside the area. Now, these applications decide for the same manufacturing area, in some case you will have a negative pressure and in some case you will have a positive pressure. Now, all of this has to be finally controlled. And control, when I mean, it is measurement, monitoring, and control. Not only measurement, not only monitoring. So these are the fundamentals of designing air conditioning systems. This was a very quick brief and I'm sure it is inadequate. So I would request Anish to generally have a poll, and we'll have a couple of, maybe one question on this topic just to make sure that everybody has understood. So I request all of you to participate in the poll and give your poll. I'm giving half a minute for you to proceed. And if there are any questions in the chat box till now, we can handle these. So you guys go ahead and click on the polling options A, B, C, D, and we'll see what it comes out. A, B, C, D are the options for poll, and Mr. Raghavan, you are requested to click on the option which you feel is correct for the question Rajiv has posted. Which of the following factor affects comfort of HVAC system? Clothing, mean temperatures, air velocities, all of the above. So guys, register your options on the poll.
So all of you please give the options in the poll window only, other than the chat box. Chat box, the question only can be seen. The poll options will come separately as ABCD. So please give the options as poll. Thank you.
I'm sure people have understood this is the question. Which of the following factors affect comfort of the HVAC system? Clothing of people inside the conditioned space, MRT, that is mean temperature surrounding objects, air velocity, movement, all of the above. So we have, 2 more sessions of polling to come in, and the first one was just to get a feel. Right. So, guys, have you answered the poll? So I will move ahead. So just to make sure that you guys are not sleeping and I'm not boring enough.
So shall I publish the results?
Yeah. Do you know, Rajivji, how many people have polled?
60 out of 85.
Yeah, then I think you can go and publish the thing.
Okay.
So 13 people
yeah.
that the option was A, which means that 13 people feel the answer was A. What is A? Clothing of people inside the conditioned space. 7 people feel that it was mean temperature. 6 people feel that it is air velocity movement, and probably 39 people, which is 60%, feel that the option was D, which means all of the above. The correct answer is all of the above. That means that all of you are right. Those who said 13 is also right. A is right, B is right, C is also right. Air conditioning system comfort definition is controlled by all the 3 aspects. And in fact, there is a way to calculate people satisfaction index by using this. So, thank you very much for participating. Let's move ahead. Okay. Now, Rajivji, how do I move ahead? Right. So,
yes, sir, you can continue.
Correct. I am continuing with the next one now. So, what are the design interventions for an energy efficient air conditioning system? Okay. These design interventions, as defined here, are, I'm not going to read them out, but just to summarize, there is a checklist of lot, whether your window area is excessive, whether the window frames are conductive, whether the building's structure cooling is in place. I'm sure most of you may not be structure cooling. The trend now is that instead of cooling the air, people continue to cool the structure by even including cooling pipes inside the structure. So that allows the structure to remain cool inside in spite of outside conditions. Now, these are some of the considerations, and the list continues, of course. But these are more, I would say, these are more controlling engineering part. The other ones were controlling more of, let's say, the structure part. Now, these considerations which you are seeing now are more pertaining to the equipment selection, engineering, tariff. Now, this is something I'm going to have a case study about. We don't realize that tariff is a silent killer. Tariff is not same at all times. These are the two for which I have a case study in this presentation. So you have questions about this, keep them in mind, and we'll have them during the session. Now, first and the foremost, most people actually shut off their air dampers for fresh air, feeling that fresh air is a energy guzzler. Now, fresh air does add to heat load, no doubt, because you're taking atmospheric air into the space, but it is not necessarily the culprit for high energy demand. Moreover, it is required for so many of the things. What? You have people inside the area, they need oxygen, so fresh air has to be taken in. You have pressure balancing to be done, fresh air is required, because otherwise you cannot have pressure adjustments whichever way. Now, how are the methods of energy efficient fresh air management? One, adiabatic cooling hybrid system, which means that we are going to have systems where the air coming in is cooled by using a combination of direct and indirect heat exchangers with water. Ambient cooling tower or ambient water, not really chilled water. Other method is heat exchange between the exhaust air and fresh air to recoup the heat. So exhaust also is ducted design, fresh air intake is also ducted and design. So for example, you have hospitals where you have once through systems, you have to throw that air out. Now these heat exchangers provide a very convenient means of taking air in and cooling. Liquid desiccant operated heat pump or solar energy. This is something which I'm going to talk about in the present. These are very, and particularly Kerala, which is coastal area, and humidity is one of the challenges, not only temperature, or rather temperature is not a challenge. Humidity is a bigger challenge. These kind of technologies have to be definitely incorporated in your designs. If you have a hospital, you have a hotel, you have a industry, you have any kind of load in Kerala, you must, like Goa, like Mumbai, like Chennai, these are the places where technologies like liquid desiccant have to be taken into account, because these are the greener parts of technology where you are taking care of the culprit, that is water in air, by using chemical desiccant and not the refrigeration. I'm going to have a case study, so I will talk about it in that. Then there are special design DX coils where refrigerant is directly used to have a air treatment and cooling. These are also designed to control humidity. This is the one, right? Now, this allows you to float temperature of the space. I'm going to talk about it in the case study of solar, but what we did there, we kept the space temperature to 26 degrees centigrade, but brought down the humidity to less than 40%. Now, this was something which was done with a purpose. Even at 26 degrees centigrade, people have a larger comfort in that. Let us move ahead for the next. How is air conditioning systems energy efficiency measured? Now, I'm sure all of you would be listening to these typical jargons, let me put in that way. Jargons are like coefficient of performance, energy efficiency ratio, specific energy consumption, ACC. So what does it mean? Coefficient of performance is a number which has got no units, and it tells you how efficient your system actually is on the input and output, percentage of output as input. Now, in the air conditioning system, you are taking in heat from the space and throwing heat out of the space. So output is always more than the input. Because of this, the coefficient of performance is generally more than 1. For all electrically operated system, it will be more than 1. The range of good, well-designed coefficient of performance is between 4 to 5.8. This can vary depending on the choice of system. In principle, higher the coefficient of performance, better is the system performance, working, etc. Second, we have energy efficiency ratio. What does energy efficiency ratio mean? This is a formula which gives you cooling by BTU per hour. BTU per hour is equivalent of ton refrigeration, TR, per watt of energy put in. So you are putting in 1 kilowatt, 1 watt of energy. How much, cooling effect you are getting, but measured in terms of BTU or kilocalories. I mean, kilocalories is the equivalent SI unit. BTU is the unit which is popularly used. So energy efficiency ratio is BTU per hour per watt. And most popularly used is specific energy consumption, where we say kilowatt per TR. What does it mean? How much energy is consumed per TR or per cooling effect. Now you may notice, and I want you to register this, lower system performance, when obviously when you are consuming higher energy to deliver 1 kilowatt of output, your system performance is poor. Therefore, higher energy efficiency ratio, better is the system, whereas high specific energy consumption, the performance is poor. Now we come to a typical range of, what compressors to use. This is a very, very typical question which I confront several times as a consultant. What should be the compressor selection? Reciprocating energy wise is like 0.7 to 0.9, centrifugal 0.63 and screw 0.65. Guys, please notice, I am talking about specific case referring to these temperatures. Now, if you look at this, I am not referring to a temperature range only 712 as a case, that is +7. I am referring to a case where the temperature, like this temperature 7 is this temperature here. This 7 is this temperature. But what if the temperature is -30? These systems are not as effective. One would not recommend centrifugal to go for -30. Screw can work up to -25, right? Now centrifugal performance on the other hand can go to as low as 0.5 kilowatt per TR. This can be 0.5 also. Not necessarily restricted to, this can be 0.5 instead. These are very good systems, and now they are available. Centrifugal is available from 100 TR onwards. There is one turbo core machine configuration where centrifugal compressors are available even at 100 TR capacity. They are expensive, but they are available. Earlier they were not available. So this makes your life simpler now. And believe me, I have seen a machine, 90 TR machine of Blue Star. I can mention that. We did a measurement. It was operating at 0.5 kilowatt per TR, the turbo core machine, and at various loading from 50% to 100%. Very effective machine, and I'm sure similar machines are available from Voltas and Carrier and other manufacturers. So this is not something proprietary of Blue Star. This is what we measured, so I'm mentioning name. Now, comparison of the options based on what kind of system we are choosing. First we saw what kind of compressors. Now we are looking at what kind of system. Say for example, this DX system means that the refrigerant is directly heat cooling air. Okay, and when I say air cooled condenser, I am saying the condenser side is cooling air, which means ambient air is cooling the system, right? On the chilled water side, which means that on the central system, chilled water system side, you can have air cooled as well as water cooled system. Very few chilled DX chillers are with water cooling. Generally, they are air cooled. Generally, okay. But I've still made a comparison of DX air cooled and water cooled. You see the difference here. Significant difference, right? I'm saying the air cooled one is 112 and the water cooled is 75. Significant difference. And they are the best in the category. A lot of people feel that air cooled systems may not be efficient and all. That's not true. They are efficient. So now we are going to the last part, which is compressor operation at part load. Now this is something which you can intervene. There are different control mechanisms of part load, right? What are those different mechanisms of part load? Number one, we have I will actually talk about it in a minute when I show a slide. We'll talk more about what happens at part load. Now, the part load performance is compromised because the displacement part of the compressor is constant. However, the volume of refrigerant vapor coming from the evaporator to compressor is low, which means that the compressor is starving for gas. Obviously, the whole system is designed for 100 people to sit in a restaurant, and you have only 5 people or 6 people sitting in. So you do not have adequate heat load, which means that the refrigerant evaporating and giving the cooling to the space is not evaporating. There is no evaporation of refrigerant. When there is no evaporation of refrigerant, the compressor is starving. Now what happens is, in such condition, the suction pressure starts going low, which means that the evaporator temperature and the pressure is going low. What is done in such case? There is a head pressure control. What is a head pressure control? It says it controls the evaporating temperature constant and allows the condenser temperature to float, which means that it is actually condensing at a higher temperature and making the system more inefficient and derating the compressor to come low. Similarly, in the other part of it, when the load increases, it allows the head pressure to drop, which means that relatively it controls the condensing temperature lower to give a better COP. Part load compressor efficiency is definitely compromised, which means that the COP tends to reduce. Okay, what it means is that the part load COP is the benefit of operating to a reduced temperature range and penalties of reduced compressor efficiency. So you have to run a compressor at part load is a compromise. So it does not work at a full capacity, full load. Now, we are moving to the next part in the discussion. And why I'm spending so much time and going a little slow on this, because this is something which is fundamental. What are the arrangements available? Sliding valve control, which means that if you have a screw compressor, the discharge refrigerant vapor is mixed into the suction refrigerant vapor by using either a slide valve or an inlet guide wing. These are techniques known as hot gas bypass arrangement. Hot gas because the discharge gas is at a higher temperature and pressure. Whereas the same effect can be done by using a variable speed drive. What does it mean now? Let me take a loading of 50%. What does it mean? My 100 TR compressor is operating at 50 TR load. Capacity is half, that is 50% load, right? How does sliding valve work at this point? What it means, at 50% load, it will consume something like 65% of energy. How does inlet guide wing control work? It means at 50% load, it will consume around 55% energy. How does variable speed work? It actually works at 50%, it will consume lesser energy than 50% because it is reducing the pressure ratio and the quantity together. And therefore, you have centrifugal compressors which show a much better efficiency in terms of COP at part loads. Mind you, these are not universal fundamentals. If you have a screw compressor at 50%, you may operate at a similar load. Now, how do I know this? I go to the next chart. These are my compression ratio. Now, what is this ideal line mean? This ideal line means that if I have got 50% load, I would have 50% energy consumption, angle of 45 degrees. Okay. Now, if I am working with compression ratio of 3, 7 for two different applications, I'll show. This is for centrifugal, this is for screw. For a screw compressor, at the same ratio, this is sliding valve control, I will have this performance. And for a reciprocating, for the same 3, I will have this performance. But the gap between this is actually the loss. This is actually the loss at part load. This should have been my best efficiency point. This is where I am operating. This is where I am operating. This is my best efficiency. Guys, please note one more thing. If the pressure ratio is higher, the inefficiency is higher. Are you getting this point? If the pressure ratio is higher, the inefficiency is higher. Please note, very important issue. Which, in other words, for the same condensing temperature, if you are operating a 7-degree chilled water temperature, your inefficiency at part load is lower. If you are operating at minus 10 degrees centigrade, your inefficiency is higher. That is what it means. This is the actual performance trial which we did on one compressor, screw compressor, HVAC system, chilled water at 7 degrees centigrade. This was Sandoz company. We did trials on the 300 TR machine. And what you can see here, as the load increases, the coefficient of performance, this line. which means that as loading goes up, my performance improved from a point X to a point Y. That is percentage of the theoretical one. As I start moving to 100%, my performance started closing to 100%. Percentage of theoretical started closing to 100. The other one, this line. This is a kilowatt per TR line. As the performance started to, as the loading started to increase, my specific energy consumption started to reduce from almost 1.1 kilowatt per TR to 0.7 kilowatt per TR. This is very important that as loading, now in real life, how do you improve loading on your machine? We are going to see some examples of that. We are almost halfway through the presentation part, and I request Anish to have a poll again on
Yes,
whatever
sir, yes.
we did till now.
Yes,
And
sir.
if you have any questions, would like to have right now.
Yes, sir. I will post the poll, sir.
So Rajiv ji, can you have the poll again?
Yes, sir. We are doing that, sir.
So question number 1 of the poll.
So the poll is posted. All of you can.
I am reading it for everybody's benefit. Which system shall have lower energy consumption for same load? Lower energy consumption, lower kilowatt consumption for same load, same TR output. System which has got lower COP, system which has got higher specific energy consumption, system which has got high energy efficiency ratio, or all of the above. Please record your answers in the polling option.
Rajesh, sir?
Yeah.
Yes, sir. 60 out of 90 have responded. So shall we wait?
I think.
Yes, sir.
There was somebody would ask for a repeat of question.
Okay.
Which system shall have lower energy consumption for the same load? System with lower COP. So consider, I'm asking a question. If the system has got same load, there are 5 systems. having same load, let's say, which system will be having the lowest energy consumption? The system with low COP, system with high specific energy consumption, or system with high energy efficiency ratio, or all of these above. All of the above will have the lowest consumption regardless, that way. So I think you may now go for the poll.
Okay, sir, I will publish. Okay, thank you.
Yes,
Sir.
please, please. So great, 55% of the people feel that it is the option C, that is system with higher energy efficiency ratio will have better performance, which means system which gives higher BTU per hour for the given kilowatt will be a system with lower energy consumption. The answer is absolutely perfect. A, B, and D are wrong answers. Which means people who have voted for A, system COP when it is low, you are actually consuming more energy per ton. When the system specific energy consumption is high, means that we have higher kilowatt for same TR output. It cannot be lower energy. So guys, good that 55% of the people got it right, and maybe 15 people, I mean 22% of the people got tricked by all of the above. So please be careful on that. Now the next question. Rajivji, next question.
Sir, shall we display the second question?
Yeah, go ahead. Display the
Thank
second
you.
question. Perfect. The question is, which of the following is the most efficient way of controlling part load? Which of the following is most efficient part load control? Hot gas bypass control, inlet guide vane control, slide valve control, or variable speed control? So you have to mark your options in the poll window, polling options A, B, C, or D. The answer which you find correct, please click on the answer of A, B, C, D, which is, please add your response into the polling window. I repeat the question, which of the following is the most efficient part load control? Whether hot gas bypass, inlet guide vane, slide valve, or variable speed. I'm not going to give a lot of time. We'll have to be quick because we are already about 40 minutes. So otherwise we'll get less time for the presentation of our case studies.
So we will give half a minute.
Yep.
I think the time is also, we have
right, correct.
Yes.
So the moment you hit 60 number of people polling in, probably you can publish it.
Yes. Now 68 out of 90. Shall I publish it, sir?
Yeah, go ahead and publish it. Absolutely.
Thank you, sir.
So 56% of the people have, 56 people, that is 81% of the people have got it right. It is a variable speed control. Absolutely. That was my previous slide. So thank you guys for perfectly recording the answer. And I'm moving next to the presentation again. Shall I? Correct.
Yes, sir. Please continue, sir.
Yeah. So now we come to the part of the, heart of the system. What do we do to save energy? That's a quick question. So now next half an hour, we are going to talk about what do you do to save energy, right? This is a typical system. You can find it in the Bureau of Energy Efficiency book also. Very beautiful depiction of the air conditioning system. Now, I really don't think I should explain, but I am still. This is the AHU. The heat is taken by air to water, which is a chilled water pumping. Then from there, it goes to the compressors or the refrigerant cycle. From there to the cooling water cycle and back to air through a cooling tower cycle. So this is a very, very typical air conditioning system, complete all parts. Now, let's look at energy conservation opportunities. Operate at higher temperatures of which means that if you can get the same air temperature with 0 degree refrigerant temperature, it is better than -5. And if you can get it at +5 temperature, the same air temperature of 12 degrees centigrade required for air conditioning, if you can get at 5 degrees centigrade of refrigerant temperature, you are further good. Same is the case when you are using chilled water. This is called as approach. The difference, the temperature between these two is the approach. So the thumb rule is 1% higher temperature in the evaporator, the specific power consumption will reduce by about 2 to 3%. Okay, this is the thumb rule. Now I go to the next aspect. What is the effect of evaporating and condensing temperatures on the performance of refrigeration system? Let's look at the evaporating temperature as it is moving from left to right higher. You can see that the specific energy consumption is coming from higher to lower. So, in nutshell, you can conclude this way. This is kilowatt per TR. Putting it again. This is kilowatt per TR. So you can see, as I move from left to right, my evaporating temperature is going from lower to higher and the specific energy consumption is getting lower. As I move from in the direction like this, my condensing temperature is going high and my energy consumption is going high. So higher condensing temperature, poor is the energy performance. Lower evaporating temperature, poor is the performance. So looking at a sandwich, you have to increase your evaporating temperature and reduce your condensing temperature. That is called as a temperature lift of a refrigeration system. Next part is how do you do accurate measurement and control of the temperature? Because temperature, what we saw, is a very, very crucial part. Now you can have temperature sensors located at the right locations. You have sensing of superheat and control. You have a solenoid valve with a process temperature feedback. Depending on the application, it will vary. You have an innovative temperature controller which monitors the supply temperature based on the outdoor temperature conditions. Say, for example, you are in an air-conditioned auditorium or your office. Now, when the outdoor temperatures are going low, obviously you do not need to maintain same chilled water temperature to get comfortable air temperature. Why? Because load has reduced. So your return air temperature has reduced. So there is a device which takes a dynamic set point adjustment based on the ambient temperature and the heat load, which is measured in the return air temperature, which means when there is no load, it raises the temperature of the air which is given to the space by using a dynamic control. Now this is missing, and this is huge potential to save. Huge temperature, huge potential to save. Something like 8 to 20% savings are possible with this kind of a floating control. Very significant. And there are controllers available. These are some of the aspects of routine maintenance. Again, I'm not going to read them out. You can read it by yourself. This, how do you know? It's a, when you stop a system for cleaning, you're taking a shutdown. So you are incurring a labor cost. So it's a crucial decision always as to when you should clean your system. Is it choked? Is it really working properly or not? The heat exchanger part. Let's check. You have a symptom checker. When a supplier ADP is going higher than the required, this could be deposits on the cooling coil. This will tend to increase your humidity in the conditioned space. When you require higher temperatures of chilled water and higher flow rates, lower temperature of chilled water and or higher flow rates, you may say that the exchanger is choked, the HU is choked. When your compressor power goes higher due to lower evaporating and higher condensing temperature, you can say that these exchangers are choked. That is the evaporator and condenser. This is like a symptom tracker, COVID has given us a symptom tracker terminology. Let's use it for our air conditioning systems. Any of these, if we are finding repeatedly, that indicates that our system has a scaling and it results in higher approach, either here or here or here. Higher the approach means poorer is the condition of your heat exchanger. This is the impact. Poor maintenance of compressor on power consumption. If you have a dirty condenser but healthy compressor, a healthy evaporator, your evaporating temperature remains same, condensing temperature goes up, and the refrigeration capacity reduces and power consumption increases. You can see power consumption has gone up, and that is as bad as 20.4%. So you are losing 20% of energy because of dirty condenser, in nutshell. Around 5 degree rise in temperature. On a dirty evaporator, the same thing is around 18%. So around 5 degree temperature drop in the evaporating temperature also has a similar impact. What if you have both poor? You lose as much as 38.7%, which is significant. Now, some of you may feel that this is ridiculous. It can never happen like this, but it does happen. We have experienced several times we have experienced this, that condenser and evaporator.
ഞാൻ മിസ് കോൾ കണ്ടു. ഹലോ, ഞാനൊരു വെബിനാറിലിരിക്കുകയാണ്. ഞാൻ അത് കഴിഞ്ഞിട്ട് വിളിക്കാം. ഒരു മണിക്കൂർ
less possible in Kerala, but for a bit different place, a little higher place, a mountain place in Kerala, you can consider these. Places like Uti and all, this is very, very useful. This is places like Delhi in Punjab and Chandigarh, where the winters are cold and summers, these are quite possible. One of the options which is possible in Kerala is use of two-stage ambienters. Again, because of the humidity, it has got a very limited application. But people from the other box of country can consider this. This is a typical vapor absorption system. I'm not going to spend much time on this, but the cycle is that the refrigerant is water, and the medium is also water. The refrigerant is also water and medium is also water. So, and concentrated lithium bromide is only a carrier. It is not the refrigerant. Please note this. This is a very small electrical energy pump. Major driving force is a heat source, which is at about 100 degree to 150 degree. Higher the temperature of heat source, better is the performance. Now, you have a comparison here. Steam consumptions is like, the COP here you can see for single effect is less than 1. But for the rest it is around 1.1. So, higher COP, better energy efficiency ratio, and lower specific energy consumption, kilowatt per TR. So, single effect or double effect, you have a comparison like this. So, you can consider as a thumb rule that single effect will consume 8 kgs of steam per TR and double effect will consume about 4. This is a comparison of electrical energy consumption on a 50, 100,000 TR. Just to give you a feel. This is like we saw part load performance of a vapor absorption, vapor compression. For vapor absorption, you have a similar one. This was again a trial done by us on a live system, minus 20 degree brine. And steam was the medium. So the steam consumption goes as high as 45 kg per TR from the lowers of 8 kg per TR as the percentage loading goes high. Higher loading is better. So I have a quick poll again and then we'll go to the case study. So Anish, I request you to have a poll again quickly so that we can move.
Yes, sir. I am posting it right away.
Anish ji?
Yes, sir. I am posting it, sir.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I think Rajiv is doing the trick. So thanks, Rajiv. So guys, quick, not even half minute to you to respond. Which of the following is not a symptom of choking? I am asking a question which is not. Means others are. High supplier ADP, high specific energy consumption, high pressure drop across the heat transfer areas, or lower approach temperatures. Which is not a symptom of choking? First one is high supply air ADP. Second is high specific energy consumption. Third is high pressure drop across the heat transfer areas. Fourth is lower approach. Which of the four is not a symptom of choking? Give your poll. Which means other three are symptoms of choking. So, Rajiv, again, 60 out of whatever numbers users participate.
Yes, sir. I
go ahead.
will have to give some half a minute only because our time is also running out.
Right, out of.
I am Anish only, sir. We are accessing the same system.
Yeah. Understood. Yes. I can see that. I want all of you to get the answer of this question as right, because this is something everybody who deals with air conditioning system deals. It took me 15 minutes to frame this question yesterday night. So you can understand the question is, which of the following is not a symptom of choking? Which is not, all others are, yes. So 53% of the people feel lower approach is not. Okay. 8 people out of, that is 14% people feel high pressure drop in the area is a symptom of choking. High supplier ADP, high specific energy consumption. And 53% people are right. Lower approach temperature is not a symptom of choking. The approaches will become high if the system is choked. So good, at least 53% of people have got it absolutely correct, what I'm trying to say. Thank you very much. I'm just, for the people who missed it, that is 47%, I'm repeating. When you have a supplier temperature high, which means that the heat transfer is not proper, and for the same chilled water temperature, you are getting a higher ADP, means that the surface is ineffective. Higher energy consumption, obviously the surface is ineffective. Higher pressure drop, if the system is choked, the pressure drop has to be higher. So it is a symptom of choking. Only lower approach is not the symptom. So let's move ahead and I go to the case study now. Thermal storage system. Anybody who has ever operated a thermic fluid system, a thermal storage system, hot and cold chill storage system. Now, thermal storage is nothing, it's an ancient thing. In our dairies, we used to do it forever. What is done? We keep ice as a storage. Instead of keeping chilled water circulation, we keep ice as a storage in a tank. That ice melts and the molten ice cools the circulating water even when chiller is not working. Which means that definitely this is not something unknown. Right? Now, do you require less energy to make ice than chilled water? Answer is no. You require higher energy to make ice. Which means that making an ice-based system is definitely a lower energy efficient system. Then why would somebody still like to use it? Something which is less energy efficient, why I am talking about it in the energy management program. Let's look at why. Now, there is a tariff associated with your energy bill. It's not only energy. What does the tariff say? That night time during 22 hours to morning 6 hours, most of the utilities do not register peak demand, and also there is a rebate for nighttime use of energy. Now all our commercial buildings, they operate during the day. So nighttime what happens? The energy demand is zero. So when you have lowest of tariff, your energy demand is zero. Second, you have a fixed demand charge per month for any half an hour maximum demand registered in the system. That is called as KVA charge, popularly known as demand charge. Now, what am I trying to do? The concept says that the demand curve is a bell-shaped demand, which means that it is low during the morning hours and low during the night hours. And during the day hours, it is at peak. So I'm slashing the top portion of the peak and pushing it into the lean session, which means that we are not operating the system when the demand is maximum and the energy charges are maximum, and therefore we are reducing our maximum demand by around 30%. Significant reduction is possible. Let's look at the typical curve. Is it something which is not done? There are several systems from 1998 till 2009. In fact, I missed to add the other ones. 2009 was done by us. 2007 was done by us. We had designed these systems, and they're still working. And I have got a picture of that. So let's see this. Let's see the example. This is National Stock Exchange building example. They have something like 2000 kV of demand with 0.98 power factor, where average, these are 2007 numbers. Now the energy charges have gone up significantly. This was their energy bill. This was the demand curve, right? Morning, this is what you can expect in any building. The demand curve is like going to be like this. A tapering top. Now, what we are trying to do, we are just trying to slash this portion of the demand. Sorry, I'll just use a different, better one. We are trying to slash this portion of demand and move it to these portions. So, during these portions, I am adding a certain demand here. I am making ice in the night now. Whereas during the day, this will stop and this ice will melt and feed into this area. This demand is now substituted by ice, which we made in the night. When there was no demand, we still operated our chiller. The advantage is now my chiller is going to operate throughout at an average constant load. You see the point advantage here. I am actually getting average load which was not otherwise available during this period for the chiller. This was the profile we logged it during the typical energy audit, hour on hour kilowatt basis. This is the maximum kWh. This is the minimum. These are actual measurements. So what we are trying to do, I'll just repeat again. I'm trying to cut this portion off. I'm trying to run this system at an average of, and I'm showing you something which actually happened. This is not theoretical. We could manage to get 600 kilowatt of reduction in this system on a maximum demand basis. Now, this was the scenario. Perfect. When we had a summer load, we had a day load and a night load, if you could see. During the day, 3 chillers of 350 TR, that is operating at 90%, 1 chiller of 200 TR operating at 90%. After the thermal storage implementation, only 1 chiller. So instead of 3, I could switch off 2 chillers, right? And the thermal storage started to discharge. This continued to operate the way it is. Now, what happened during the night load? Those 2 which stopped here actually operated here. Can you see this? These 2 chillers which stopped here during the day started to operate during the night at a lower load and kept on charging the system. You see, 4,100 TR hour system, not small. So you take it on an 8 hours basis, it was like 400 kilowatt, 400 TR system. 400 TR was the average load. 400 to 450 TR is the average load for charging. So these 2 chillers, 700 TR capacity, operated at 450 TR output to charge the system. These are the operating hours per day before and after. Green is after. 10 hours, no change. Plus 8 hours is the thermal storage operation. You can see the peak demand registered has reduced from 1860 to 1300 during the daytime. Now night time there is increase in this demand, but this is not recorded. There is no billing for that. So there was about 560 kVA of demand reduction equivalent of benefit in summer, very similar in winter. This was summer and this is winter. This is after thermal storage of summer. This is before thermal storage of summer. 560, 550 kilowatt of average reduction in demand. What does it mean in rupee terms? This was the system before, and you could see in this entire system, okay, not much addition, only this pumping, this portion got added. Very, that way minor change. These were the storage tanks that got added. So minor change, some PHEs, some tanks and some pumps. Mind you, we are talking about 4100 TR-hour, that is like 500 TR continuous operating system, not a small system. What were the components? So this was the storage tank, 2 sets of these were the nodules, these were 400 TR, 2 number PHEs, primary. These were what got added. This is the total saving. About 1.8 CR was the investment. You see, demand saving was major. And the payback was 4 years. And the time when it was implemented, there was no advantage on time of the day tariff. So this energy saving, whatever is seen here, is only on account of pumping energy saving. Time of the day savings were not seen then, which get added today. And still the payback was around 4 years. Now we have not only designed, we have implemented, we have also monitored this system. So reduced demand, major advantage here. During the power failures, this system had a problem. They could not run DG sets. So all chillers could not operate on DG sets. Now because they had a thermal storage system, the entire thing could operate on the DG set. I'm talking about this. Cooling tower loads were reduced, averaged out, pumping power, there was a reduction. This is the other thermal storage system for an auditorium, Gadkari Rangayatan. This is in Thane Municipal Corporation. This system was ancient, old. And what we actually worked on this system here, the savings were about 15 lakhs and the investment was 80 lakhs. So the payback period, if you see here, was about 5 years plus. But in this system, the whole thing was changed. This was before, this was after. Correct? Now, what you can see, the entire plant room was changed, which means my chiller was also changed. This was stopped. And completely new chiller. You can see a congested room, chiller room here, and you can see a spacious room. This is actually the tank that was installed. This is a photograph of the actual tank that was installed. Now, what did we get out of it? A 30 kVA demand reduction. Again, percentage-wise, if you see, it's about 20% reduction. But the facility had a major advantage because of the humidity reduction and the temperature control, which was proper. Being an auditorium, this was very important for them to maintain. So the next example is of the solar air conditioning system with the liquid desiccant thing. We have a question still, but I will be putting it later, end of the session, when both these are over. Now, solar air conditioning system, we have a lot of inquiries where people keep on asking us, can a solar air conditioning system be used? Can a solar air conditioning system be used? Now, this was actually implemented for Kalwa Hospital in Thane Municipal Corporation. So these are the tested results for 5 years after the system was installed. Now, what was the system earlier? There were boilers they were working on diesel. There were air conditioning system chillers. They were working on electricity, and the total cost of operation, including fuel and this, was around 82 lakhs per year. By the time this system got implemented, this 82 lakhs became 1.25 because there was an increase in electrical energy cost and the fuel cost substantially. Now, the considerations that came in for the HVAC system design were not only energy cost reduction. We wanted 100% renewable energy, which means that the backup to the system was also renewable energy. DG set backup was not sufficient to run, and during the operations, even an operation theater operation, if there would have been a power failure, they used to find a major hassle in maintaining conditions.
Rajesh sir,
Yep.
Sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah.
Anish here, sir.
Yeah, Anish.
Sir, shall we poll the last question?
No, we will poll the last question end of this.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
This is a win because we are little cramped on time. So
Okay.
I would rather finish these two and then take questions and poll together.
It's okay, sir. Fine, sir. Thank you, sir.
Now, we have a consideration of a liquid desiccant system, where I told you some time back that the fresh air required as per ASHRAE standard of 62.1 indoor air quality was not maintained. So we added a liquid desiccant system for that. And second, very interesting, there was a large OPD, and post-COVID, I believe if there are any people from healthcare industry, there is a mandatory requirement to have certain areas which are going to be having OPDs, and most of the facilities are missing this point, that the outdoor patient sections, OPD sections should have 100% fresh air, no recirculation of air. The cost of that is very high if you do go with the conventional air conditioning system. It is one of the potential areas of contamination of infections. So we did it in Kalwa Hospital at that time where the area was open. So air conditioning was becoming huge. So what we did here, we had a OPD section with a conditioned ventilation. So we had a liquid desiccant based system which would dehumidify and cool the air with a heat pump. And that dehumidified cool air is added to the system where we could maintain a moderate temperature of 26 degrees centigrade only. This is the supply air temperature, not the conditioned space. But because the humidity was low and OPD, you have large congregation of people, so you have only latent heat getting added. In spite of heat loads, the temperature never rose out of 26. So this is a very suitable solution today in the post-COVID era. Next 5 years, people are going to face this. So wherever you want to add fresh air, do consider as a liquid desiccant system. The system looked, I'll show you the liquid desiccant separately. The whole system looks like this. Solar concentrator generated steam. Out of the steam, some part of the steam was given to the VAM, vapor absorption machine, which provided chilled water for the hospital conditioning. This was the liquid desiccant dehumidification, and the dehumidified air was given for the OPD. The liquid desiccant system, which is shown here, provided dehumidified air for the hospital and OPD together. Separate fresh air blower is used, and hot water was used. Steam was given, hot water tank, and the hot water was given back to the condenser tank. So this is a complete system. This is a complete system. Very simple, not very complicated, and we used it 100% solar. Now during the hours when solar energy is not available, night hours, morning hours, A backup was provided with a steam boiler which operates with renewable energy leakage, which is 100% renewable. So there's no conventional fuel. The conventional fuel was completely replaced. Solar air conditioning system 6 hours, 8 months, and the backup briquette fired boiler for the rest of the period. 160 TR was the air conditioning system. 52.5 TR was the liquid desiccant system. Significant large number. IIT Mumbai was one of the contractors. We had the design, and IIT Mumbai supplied the liquid desiccant system. These were the concentrators, Schaeffler design concentrators. Now the concentrators have come with a much better design and energy performance. The systems look more compact and more efficient. This is a liquid desiccant system. Some of you may have a question as to what is a liquid desiccant system. Now we have a fresh air comes in, it comes in contact with the liquid chemical desiccant and the dehumidified air at this air goes to the supply duct, 33% at 15 degrees centigrade, which the dew point is about -7 degrees centigrade. The liquid desiccant circulates through a tank, and the regeneration cycle we require hot water. This is where solar energy is very effectively used, because hot water availability at 60 degrees is very cheap from solar energy. So those of you who are having hospital or a healthcare facility and are facing a challenge of large energy consumption, or you want to make your facility for COVID compliance, and energy or transformer sizing is coming out to be a constraint, this is a very good solution. How does it operate? These are the economics of it. The entire 32 kilowatt of cooling water and 45 kilowatt of hot water requirement. So this was the whole system. But I'm sure you are more interested in the economics than the technicalities. These are the numbers. So the fuel and maintenance cost shall be reduced by about 20 lakhs. I would actually show you the. So average energy saving was about 60 lakhs per annum. And mind you, by the time the system got implemented, tariffs went up, and this 60 lakh became actually about 100 lakhs in terms of savings. Capital cost was around 3 crores. MNRE gave a subsidy of 124 lakhs, that is 1.24 crores. So the total capital cost outlay was 184 lakhs, that is 1.8 crores. And just 3.25 years, less than 4 years payback for a renewable energy system. Phenomenal, not otherwise expected as a business as usual case. So substantial savings and very financially attractive way. Now, these are details of my company, and I'm sure you will have this presentation on the website, and you can have our coordinates of communication very easily available. So I request Rajiv ji to have the last polling question, and then we can have. So Rajiv ji, request you to give the polling question.
Yes, sir. I am posting it. Right now.
Yeah, I saw that. The thermal storage system gives which of the following benefits? Reduction, please answer on the polling. Reduction in energy consumption by improving efficiency, energy cost reduction by effective use of time of the day tariff, maximum demand reduction and control, all of the above. So Mind you, here the question I am repeating, thermal storage systems gives which of the following: reduction in energy consumption, kWh reduction by improving efficiency. I am referring to the system efficiency, not the compressor efficiency. It's the overall system efficiency. Energy cost reduction by effective use of time control. So if you have 60, then you can publish. Great. So 80% of the people have got it right, all of the above. Just a clarification once again, reduction in energy consumption of the overall system. Compressor energy consumption does not reduce. In fact, the compressors operate more inefficiently, if you say, because they operate at a lower temperature. For the same TR output, they consume more energy. So this is not meant for reduction in compressor performance. Great. So I think I will just read through some of the questions here. How much space required for thermal storage for same output? Very difficult to say. I mean, it depends on size, but typically you have a 40 meter cube storage device, which gives you about 100 out of 100 kind of TR hours during the 8 hours charge. That could be a very thumb rulistic, but not really correct for all applications. It depends a lot deal on the charging and discharging cycle. If you have one-time charge and one-time discharge, then the size is bigger. If you have a simultaneous charging discharging facility, that may be lower. The question is, thermal storage system effectively works for this and not useful for 3-star. I do not really agree with this because the first one to install was Orchid Hotels. That's a 3-star hotel. Definitely in 3-star or 5-star hotels, we have seen that the demand curve is not exactly bell-shaped. It is more flat. But thermal storage systems can be used for the restaurant and the banquet hall air conditioning systems. You have large banquet halls, you've got large restaurants, eat-out zones, some of the shopping malls also in the 3-star hotels. Those operate during the daytime. Now, these are the ones where thermal storage becomes very effective. And in fact, it is more convenient, to integrate it that way. It need not be for the entire 30% load. That I agree. There are recent installations of thermal storage. I can provide you details. You can write to us. You have my email and telephone. So there are vendors for solar air conditioning system, all of them. I would generally not give any vendor names as a part of presentation because it could be a bias. You can write, we will respond to you independently with the details of vendors. Yeah, we can give resources as well as we can give some inputs about how to calculate thermal storage benefits. We have our own calculation sheets for that. Please do share your feedbacks. The question is local body regulation, no restriction. I don't know, is this question related to solar or it is related to thermal storage? It is for solar. The local body regulation to restrict uses if it is CRZ area. For solar, no. There is no restriction. As one suggestion to remove the poll from the screen so that people can see the...
Like that, sir.
Yeah. Correct. I think it's removed now, so you can see that. Is liquid desiccant dehumidification system installed in any of the corporate offices in Mumbai? Corporate offices, I'm not aware, but liquid desiccant systems are definitely installed in pharma industries, hospitals, and numbers. If you want, I will get you details of the corporate office from the suppliers. Definitely, we can get it from the suppliers, but hospitals and pharma companies, yes. Is solar subsidy still available? If so, what are the applicable to all states? Best of my understanding, MNRE subsidy is available for solar thermal systems, which is for the parabolic or the concentrators, and it is available in all states. EMC can guide probably if it is available. Any other subsidy is available. If it is available for Kerala state separately, but MNRE is available on the parabolas across the country.
Sir, one announcement. All of you can please fill up the feedback form. One Google form link is also shared regarding the program. Anything we have to improve that you can share. Thank you, sir.
Please do share your critical comments if you find anything which was which could have been done better. Please do write in details. We wouldn't mind the critical feedback. How to check whether split or window AC is working efficiently or not? Whenever you get your AMC done, check your standing pressure and the operating pressures, condenser and evaporator of the refrigerant. That is the simplest and the most practical way of checking. Other checks are what is the grill temperature you are getting in window or split. It's a very good indicator. If you are getting between 5 to 7 degree grill temperature, your probably AC is working properly. Then the next question is, we have seen the chiller system which has got VFD and guide vane control. Is it an erroneous way of operation? No, it is not. VFD are operated up to a certain speed because most of the systems have a lube oil control on the same shaft. The lube oil circulating pump is on the same shaft as the compressor. So below a certain RPM, the lube oil pressure is not maintained. Now, in such case, you need to go to the inlet guide vane control below that. Typically, what I can understand from this question is this system would be a centrifugal chiller because the design suggests. Now, in centrifugal chiller, you have a surge control mechanism additionally. The system can go in surge at a lower RPM, and that is where it has to be necessarily restricted. Below that RPM, if the load still drops, you have to go for inlet guide vane control. In the impact or type of reference on efficiency of system, well, the answer theoretically is yes. From refrigerant to refrigerant, there is an energy efficiency difference. We go to, let's say, negative temperatures, ammonia is a better refrigerant. We go to higher temperatures, maybe some of the hydrocarbons are better, but the impact is not very significant. It could be 2 to 4%. You don't expect 20% kinds of impact because of the refrigerant change. So my request is not to look at refrigerant change from the perspective of energy. It is more to do with the environmental pollution, and the refrigerants come with their own pressure schedules. So it is not necessary that the same compressor can accommodate different refrigerants. The next question is thermal storage tank. Can we have overhead if properly insulated? Yes, it is possible. Thermal storage can be overhead. The question about reduction in energy consumption kWh by improving efficiency. So, question is very interesting. As the lift of compressor increasing, brine having a higher specific gravity, efficiency will be reducing. Not really. It is not a function of specific gravity. The efficiency reduced because the temperature lift. Brine is operated at -5, so the refrigerant is operated at -10. From 0 to -10, the refrigerant evaporating temperature goes down, energy efficiency is reduced. The next question is about IE3 motors in HVAC system, very popular, absolutely perfect. It is an energy conservation means. But it has nothing to do with air conditioning. It has to do something with the electrical energy. Is ammonia
chilled water pumps, we can use IE3 motors, right, sir? Chilled water pumps.
Yeah, IE3 motors can be used on all even for compressors you can use IE3 motors. The energy conservation is on account of electrical energy performance improvement, not on the refrigeration cycle. I just wanted to say that. The next question is ammonia refrigerant for thermal storage like it is used in dairies? Yes, it can be used. Ammonia is one of the possible solutions. R22 equivalent ones, R123 equivalent ones, hydrocarbon like R407, R600 can be used there. But ammonia is used like it is in dairies.
Sir, I think the time is already surpassed.
Already up.
Nearing 12:30. Yeah, it's, we have 5 more minutes left. So I think we can take 1 or 2 questions. And we will send all the answers to all the questions by email. The question and the answer we will send by email to all the participants.
Okay, perfect.
So one more question, Sri Vadi Venkatesh, he has asked, how much percentage
of energy we may lose if we use AC at home without false ceiling? It's a very tricky question. If you are a standalone building or a bungalow and the top roof is exposed to atmosphere, you may lose between 30% energy by not having a false ceiling or insulation on the underdeck. But if you are in a multi-storied building and the person staying on your top also has an air conditioning system, you may not lose anything. So false ceiling for standalone buildings with a solar exposed roof, it is significant. Why ammonia is not popular in hospital is we can use it where in LDS also. In hospital can use as well as air conditioning and for LDS also by doing the superheating. Ammonia is not popular because it smells when it leaks, and the ammonia handling systems are not very leak proof. So particularly the storages and piping and pumping. So that is why ammonia is not popular. Otherwise, ammonia is a very good refrigerant. And in hospitals particularly, we can feel little suffocated if we have exposure to ammonia. But it is not true that it is not used. It is used. Even in hospitals, it is used. In fact, Kalwa Hospital, where we changed, was having an ammonia system. You have a screw compressor based ammonia system. It is very well sealed. If you have reciprocating, then you have got the heads which leak. So there is a chance that it may cause a problem. So it's the smell and leakage is the issue. Where do we have good scope for energy saving in banking, chillers, pumping? I think there are lots of questions and lots of...
yes. We are also happy that lots of people are, it's a very interesting topic also. So very interactive also. So I think we can send these answers to all these questions in the chat box by email to all the participants. And I think we can go for the closing.